Why is breathing one of the most important things that you can do for your health? Well, I want to ask you a question because that's what I do. I ask lots of questions, but I want to ask you a question. How long can you go without food? We're talking about health here, right? So how long can you go without food? What's the longest fast ever recorded? Well, the longest medically supervised fast was over 380 days. 380 days. Now, this person was obese, so they had a lot of body fat tissue to use as fuel, but that's medically supervised, that's on record. Someone can go that long without ingesting food. Now, Jesus, 40 days, 40 nights type thing, all right? People who are even skinny can go for a long period of time. So let's just say weeks. Another question, how long can you go without water? I think that one shortens it up into days. So maybe a couple days you can go without water, maybe pushing it to 1 week, but I would say a couple days usually is what people can go without water and food. Let's just say if they're not having food as well. Last question, how long can you go without air? How long can you go without breathing? Most people, it's 2, 3, 4 minutes. The world record, I think, is somewhere around 18, 20 something minutes. So we go from weeks or possibly months without food down to less than a week, a couple days without water, and then we go into minutes without air. So the hierarchy of needs for your body, I mean, how many breaths do you take throughout the day? Many, many, many. How many meals do you have? You have 3, meals, maybe a couple snacks. So oxygen, air, breath is so important for the human body. And I've always been someone who's been fascinated by the breath. I've always had a good lung capacity. I think it's kind of genetic. I've been an athlete and I always had really good stamina, and I kind of put that into having good lung capacity. And even when I was in school, they wanted me to join cross country because I could swim underneath the pool a bunch of times without going up for air. And the coach really wanted me to join cross country because he wanted that lung capacity to be used for running, and it's really, really powerful. So I've always had a fascination with it because at the same time, although I've had this ability to have good endurance and hold my breath and do all that, my problem is I've always had anxiety, and the anxiety comes from holding my breath. But in normal situations, in social situations, or when I'm concentrating on something, or when I'm nervous, or whatever it might be, when I'm in sports, you're supposed to breathe, right? So I've always felt more at home on the field or on the court or in the pool because you're supposed to be breathing hard and moving, and so my natural inclination just kicks in. But if you take me out of that, you put me in a classroom or you put me somewhere else, I tend to get a little bit more anxious, and my pattern is to hold my breath. Some people, they breathe shallowly, they breathe up into their head and their neck. But even people who breathe into their belly, which I always thought was the best way to breathe, belly breathing, if you're not using the full capacity of your lungs, if you're not using your diaphragm in your belly, but your rib cage, your chest, your intercostals, all these muscles, even your throat and your head, to take in as much oxygen as you can throughout the day when you're breathing, you're missing out. And I'm really fascinated about this right now, even more so. And I've been fascinated about this because meditation changed my life. So I used to have all this anxiety, and I learned about meditation when I was in college and completely changed my life to the point where I practiced it for years, and then eventually ended up writing a book, which I'm in the middle of rewriting right now because I kind of don't like the first version that I released many years ago, took it off the market. But it's something that is really near and dear to my heart, and I understand the value of it. But right now, specifically, I'm getting back into it and looking at other techniques and really understanding the science of why it's so important, getting back to the health reasons of it. But Transformational Breath by Dr. Judith Kravitz, and I watched a couple of her presentations, and now I'm reading her book, and I'm almost done with that. And it's really, really fascinating to understand how much the breath is really used for all of our cellular processes. And I mean, again, like we talk about, if you aren't breathing, you're dead. You can't go without it for a very long time. And it shows you that your body needs it, okay? Oxygen, what we get through our breath, that's the substrate that we're using in our bloodstream and in our cells, is so valuable, is so important. And now when we have lower air quality in some places, we have a lot of anxiety, and we have a lot of stress, breathing is the way out of that. Like I said, I'm living proof to be able to deal with stress and anxiety that really affects me in a way, but I've been able to use things like meditation and breathing techniques to help out. Now, it's not like I'm some perfect person because of this, and I still struggle with those issues, but it's a way to mitigate them without having to use surgery or drugs or some other sort of intervention that's going to be a lot more invasive. So this transformational breath by Dr. Judith Kravitz is really fascinating. I'm thinking about actually going down and doing a full course with them and immersing myself in it to learn a little bit more. But some of the things that she talks about in the book are fascinating, like how much oxygen we consume. We consume 7 to 8 pounds worth of oxygen through our breathing throughout the day, whereas food, we only consume about 4 pounds of food. And how many pounds of water? A couple pounds of water. So same sort of thing, that hierarchy of needs for our body. Yes, of course, we're going to need food, but for a lot of people, they might be obese. Like I said, go look up the study, longest medically supervised fast, over 380 days. Fasting works. I made a video on that recently. Why does fasting work? Your body's naturally designed. So we today have all this stress, we have all this excess body fat and these issues, especially us here in the West, but what's our ticket out of it? Is it drugs? Is it surgery? I think that breathing is the key. And I think that breathing, you've heard me talk about Wim Hof method. There's all these different sorts of techniques coming out there that are gaining more popularity. Judith Kravitz wrote this book in 1999. It's been around for a long time. Why are these things getting more popular now, more so than ever? And I believe is because we're not breathing well. And if we learn to breathe better, our health will change. It'll be easier for people to then do the things that they need to do with their diet or exercise programs if their goal is to lose weight or tone or whatever it might be. I think that breathing is one of those things, like a meta principle. It's a principle that if you do this one thing, it'll help lead into all of the other things that you want to do. It'll make all of those things easier. So why is breathing so important? I talked about it at the beginning. Can't go for very long without it. That hierarchy of your needs within your body, it's telling you something. Breathe. Okay, if you find yourself breathing shallowly, try to, push on your belly and then force your breath out through your belly and then let it come up into your chest and let it come all the way up. You don't want to stop breathing up here, but you want to try to use everything you've got, and those full breaths are really, really what's going to get the oxygen down into the areas that you need. If you look at the structure of your lungs, the lungs are like branches. They keep branching out, branching out, branching out, branching out. And the branches get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller down to the cellular level. And where are those branches shaped? They're pointing down, right? In this area, in your chest. And so if you don't get a deep breath down and expand the rib cage, you're not going to get that transfer of oxygen. And like I said, the rest of the body needs it for all of its processes. I'm reading the book, and it's just fascinating to see. She just lists off all these different things that your body needs oxygen for. And I'm a personal trainer, so I understand fat metabolism and cardiovascular training and things, so heart and lungs, and I know about that, but I don't know about all these other different processes in the body. I'm not a physician, and I'm not a scientist that studies the cells. I know a little bit about that, but it's very, very fascinating. So I think the best thing that you can do for your health is to take a nice deep breath and then to continue that throughout the day. And when you catch yourself, that's why meditation is so powerful, is because it trains you to catch yourself, bring yourself back on target. But if you catch yourself throughout the day, whether that's like me, holding your breath, or breathing shallowly, or breathing into only one area of your body, even if you're belly breathing, but you're only breathing into that one area, you're not taking full deep breaths all the way through the rib cage and all the way up. Those are some things that can dramatically improve your health. And I think not only will it improve your health immediately, you'll feel better, but I think it'll make all the other things that you want to do with your health that much easier. So the breath, it's important. Do it. Take that full breath in, let it out, and relax and enjoy.